today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500, including the economic calendar. Now, I do post these videos daily, so I highly encourage you to double check the latest video so that way you have the most up-to-date information. And before I cover the technical analysis portion, I'm going to go over the economic calendar. So for Thursday, July 25th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m., we have GDP numbers, then as well as initial jobless claims and durable goods and orders, and as well as durable goods minus transportation, all at 8:30 a.m. And then the most important thing for the week, by the way, too, is for Friday, the PCE inflation numbers. Again, the Feds highly regard these numbers as more accurate versus the PCI and CPI numbers, or PPI and CPI numbers. So the PCE more accurate, and then as well as they're going to be looking at the core PCE year over year mainly, which previously came in at 2.6. This time around, expecting 2.6 as well. So be on the lookout for that. Now, leading up to that day, the markets could be heading lower, and we saw pretty much a low hit day today. We got Nasdaq pretty much down a little bit over 3.5%, and S&P a little over 2% down. And the volatility index has increased substantially. It was up 22.57% today. So more volatility could be on the way, potentially. Now, in my opinion, looking at the S&P and Nasdaq, they are showing a potential little bit more drop / potential spike up, but ultimately coming down. And then the Dow Jones is just showing straight downside. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm looking at. First, I'm going to go over the S&P, and then I'll go through the rest. And for S&P, I'm going to be looking over the looking at SPY, which is an ETF for the S&P 500. And based off the MACD lines, that's how I got the direction that I'm expecting potentially, mind you, close at $541.23. There could be an additional drop, somewhat short term, which comes down to $539, give or take. I'm basing it off of this small touch point right here. It's only one touch point though. And then if we do see the not spike up, but a jump up, I'm expecting it to pretty much get into this zone right about here. So horizontally, there's either, I would go on the higher side, to be honest. There's a couple of points right about here across the line. And that is pretty much about, when I checked, about 546 and some change. Or it could be on the lower end, which is most probably likely the case, which is, again, 546, I believe. Okay, $545 and some change on the higher end. And then ultimately come down. The reason I'm saying ultimately come down, the MACD lines, look, for example, if you look at the 1 year chart, bearish movement, right? 5 year chart. By the way, in case you're new to the channel, this is the MACD line, indicates if it's a bearish or bullish movement, and 5 year chart as well, pointing to the downside. So even though the shorter term is kind of showing a potential recovery, even though I think it might be dipping down a little bit, either early part of the day or almost mid part of the day, and then maybe testing a higher level potential, not higher level, but going to those levels I mentioned earlier, but ultimately coming down maybe by the end of the trading day, maybe. And then the question is, if it's heading down, okay, where are we heading? I think we're heading back down to this level, give or take, which is pretty much, we saw a bunch of resistance touch points right about here. 1, 2, 3. There's a little fourth one right there, 5 touch point. And then there's somewhat of a touch point right there where I was going up. And then support level as well. So multiple touch points, and that's $531 and some change. That's what we're looking at. So I think ultimately tomorrow is going to be somewhat a half day kind of thing, where it's like up down kind of thing. Maybe a big drop, but I think probably more towards the end of the trading day. And again, ultimately heading down to 531 baseline, and then we'll see what happens from there. Now for Nasdaq, looking at ETF QQQ, which is just basically a different ratio, paints the same picture in terms of a little bit of a downside / upside, and then maybe by the end of trading day we'll go down, because I'm expecting to go to another lower level as well. Now in terms of the potential smaller drop, mind you, we closed at $463.38. The small drop, if it does happen, it's not guaranteed. Again, same thing with S&P, it's not guaranteed. It's a little bit of a short term, it might be a little bit of a spike up, but again, I'll cover that level. So we might drop to 460 and some change, and then be going up potentially. And if we do go up, I think, I'm not expecting anything crazy personally. It's either between 470 and some change or 468 and some change, somewhere between that level. Just because when we broke through this 2010 upward trend resistance line that I've shown in the past, there was a slight breakthrough channel. And then when we were dropping, same thing right about here within the zone. And then ultimately, if you think you're very optimistic that we're going to go up no matter what, you're looking at $477 and some change. I just don't think we will. And to show you what the representation of that line is, goes back to since 2010, upward trend resistance line, broke through since 2020 to 2022, got back underneath it, and then we're pretty much just right underneath it right now. That's what I'm visually showing. But yeah, so there's that. Now, and then plus it collides with the moving average. Now, if we do go down to the downside, because ultimately I think we're going down lower, I'm expecting somewhere within this zone right about here, where we had multiple times resistance levels across the board, and then probably a little bit more of a small drop kind of thing range. But ultimately somewhere in the range of 400. When I checked it, it was more predominantly about almost $449 and some change. So basically 450 and some change slash false breakout. Can we go to 443 where this dropped? I guess we can. Obviously anything's possible. I just don't anticipate that much of a drop personally. I think more that these resistance levels could act as support on the way down. So ultimately I'm looking at $449 and some change, but it's showing somewhat 447 and some change right now. It could have been in the 6-month chart or something like that. Now for the Dow Jones is just showing straight downside. So if you're new to the channel, upward trend resistance line dating back since 2021 and upward trend support level. The reason why I'm showing this upward trend support level is because it's kind of showing downside. And if it is, are we going to come back down to this upward trend support level? Possibly. And if you think it's just going to drop right away right now, just if you want to know what the price is, mind you, we close at 39,853 points. And if we were to drop straight down, which is not going to be the case, obviously, but in case you're wondering, you're looking at 38,452 points, give or take, right? But ultimately, I think this moving average will be the next level we're going to see, and that is about 39,552 points. I'm not really anticipating anything crazy lower than that for the time being. But it could obviously still go lower. But that's the next price point I'm looking to hit, potentially to hover around that price point. Again, 39,552 points, give or take around that range. Maybe even the clean 500. But ultimately it's pointing down. That's basically what's happening. This is not even really showing upside at all for the Dow Jones. But that's basically it for the video today. Thanks again for watching. I do appreciate it. If you found it beneficial, consider dropping a like. It does help the channel, so thank you so much for that. And I do post these videos daily, so consider subscribing/following if you want to be notified when I do upload my next video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Peace.